The blue glow from the laptop screen painted shadows across Detective Marcus Webb's face as he watched the live stream for the fourth time that night. The camera angle was fixed, looking down at a worn leather armchair, the kind with deep creases that held the shape of whoever sat there most often. In the chair, bound and gagged, was a woman. She couldn't have been older than 30. Her eyes were wide, darting frantically toward something off-camera, something the viewers couldn't see. The chat window beside the video scrolled with messages from anonymous users, some begging the broadcaster to stop, others typing things Marcus had learned to never read twice. But it wasn't the woman's terror that had frozen Marcus in place, his coffee growing cold in his hand. It wasn't even the casual cruelty of the killer's movements, as gloved hands appeared periodically in frame, adjusting the camera, tilting the woman's chin up for a better view. It was the wallpaper behind her. Faded green damask, a pattern Marcus had stared at for 3 years, every morning, every evening, from the sofa in his own living room. 3 weeks earlier, Marcus had been a different man. Not happier, perhaps, but more certain of the boundaries between his work and his life. He lived alone in a second-floor flat in Bloomsbury, the kind of place estate agents called characterful, because the radiators clanked and the floorboards groaned when you walked to the bathroom at night. He'd moved there after the divorce, seeking the anonymity that only London could provide. A city large enough to let you disappear even when you were standing in the middle of it. His days followed a rhythm. Wake at 6, black coffee, no sugar. The walk to the tube took exactly 12 minutes if he didn't stop for a second cup at the cafe on Marchmont Street, which he usually did. The Metropolitan Police Headquarters loomed gray and institutional, the kind of building that seemed designed to remind you that bureaucracy outlasted individuals. Marcus had spent 18 years in the force, the last 6 in digital crimes, tracking predators who thought encryption made them invisible. The first stream had appeared on a Tuesday. The tech unit had flagged it during a routine sweep of the dark web, one of dozens of illegal broadcasts they monitored daily. But this one was different. The production quality was too good. The killer didn't hide behind glitchy webcam footage or low-resolution feeds. This was high definition, professionally lit, almost cinematic. The first victim had been a man in his 50s, bound to a chair in what appeared to be an empty warehouse. The killer never appeared on camera. Only hands, always gloved, always deliberate. The murder itself had been quick, clinical, a single shot to the head. No theatrics, no taunting. Just the act, streamed to an audience that had grown to 300 viewers before the feed went dark. Marcus had watched the recording 6 times, cataloging every detail. The acoustic signature suggested an enclosed space, likely underground. The chair was generic, purchasable from a dozen retailers. The gun was a Glock 17, standard issue for half the criminals in Europe. There were no windows, no distinguishing marks, nothing that screamed, "I am here, come find me." The killer was careful, methodical, and he was just getting started. The second stream came 4 days later. A woman, this time, younger, strapped to a metal table. Same production quality, same gloved hands, same single shot. The chat had exploded with activity, users flooding in from encrypted forums, treating it like entertainment. Marcus had felt his stomach turn as he read the messages. The casual way people discussed another human being's final moments as if critiquing a film. His partner Detective Inspector Sarah Chen had joined the investigation after the second victim. She was sharper than Marcus, quicker to see patterns, but she approached the work with a detachment he'd never managed. "It's a show," she'd said, leaning back in her chair as they reviewed the footage. "He's performing. The streams are his gallery. Then we need to figure out who's buying tickets," Marcus had replied. They'd spent days tracing IP addresses, finding dead ends and proxy servers that pinged across continents. The killer was using military-grade encryption, routing his signal through nodes in countries with no extradition treaties. Every lead dissolved like smoke. The third stream changed everything. Marcus had been home, heating up leftover curry in his small kitchen when his phone buzzed with an alert. The killer was live again. He'd grabbed his laptop, settling into his usual spot on the sofa, the leather armchair positioned across from him at an angle. The stream loaded quickly. High definition, as always. And there, on his screen, was a woman bound to a chair. But this time, as Marcus leaned closer, his breath caught in his chest. Behind the woman, barely visible in the background, was a bookshelf. The books were out of focus, but he could make out the spines. Red, blue, a thick green volume he'd received as a gift from his daughter years ago. A collection of Sherlock Holmes stories. He looked up from the screen, across his living room, at the bookshelf against the far wall. The same books, the same order. His heart began to hammer. He stood slowly, laptop in hand, and walked toward the armchair. The camera angle in the stream seemed to be positioned roughly where he was standing. He looked down at the chair. It was empty, of course. Just worn brown leather and the faint indentation where he sat most nights. He looked back at the screen. The woman in the stream was crying now, her shoulders shaking. The chair she was bound to was identical to his. The wallpaper behind her, that faded green damask, was the same pattern that covered his walls. Marcus felt the room tilt slightly. He set the laptop down on the coffee table and walked the perimeter of his flat, checking every window, every lock. The door was bolted from the inside. The windows were latched. He lived on the second floor. There was no fire escape, no easy access from the street. He checked the bedroom, the bathroom, the narrow kitchen. He was alone. He'd been alone all evening. Back in the living room, he picked up the laptop again. The stream was still going. The woman was trying to speak through the gag, her words muffled and desperate. Then the hands appeared. The same gloved hands from the previous streams, reaching into frame to adjust the camera. They were deliberate, almost gentle, as if the killer wanted to ensure every viewer had the perfect angle. And then the hands moved to the woman's throat. Marcus watched, frozen, as the life drained from her eyes. It took longer this time, more personal. When it was over, the stream cut to black. The chat erupted in chaos, messages flying past too quickly to read. Marcus slammed the laptop shut and stood in the darkness of his living room, his breathing ragged. He didn't sleep that night. The next morning, he arrived at headquarters before sunrise. Sarah found him in the tech lab, surrounded by printouts of still frames from the stream. "You look terrible," she said, setting down 2 cups of coffee. "I need you to look at something," Marcus said. He pulled up the stream on one of the large monitors and paused it on a frame showing the background. "Do you see that wallpaper?" Sarah squinted. "Green, floral pattern, what about it?" "That's my living room." She turned to look at him, her expression unreadable. "What?" The wallpaper, the bookshelf, the chair, it's my flat. The killer is streaming from my flat. Sarah stared at the screen, then back at Marcus. Have you checked for cameras? 3 times. I tore the place apart. Nothing. Then it's a replica. He's recreating your space somewhere else. Marcus shook his head. Look at the details. The crack in the plaster near the ceiling. The way the light hits the bookshelf. It's not a replica. It's exact. Marcus, Sarah said carefully, that's impossible. You were home during the stream. You would have known if someone was there. I know, he said. That's what terrifies me. They launched a full investigation into Marcus's building, interviewed neighbors, checked security footage from nearby businesses, searched for any sign of forced entry. Everything came back clean. No one had seen anything unusual. No one had heard anything. Marcus's flat was a sealed box, and yet somehow a killer had used it as a stage for murder. The forensic team found the 3rd victim 2 days later in an abandoned building in Southwark. The cause of death matched what they'd seen in the stream: strangulation. But the location was wrong. The room where they found her body was concrete and bare. Nothing like the warm, lived-in space shown in the video. He moves them, Sarah theorized. Kills them in one place, dumps them in another. But that didn't explain the background. It didn't explain how Marcus's living room had appeared in the stream when he'd been sitting in it at the same time. The 4th stream went live on a Friday night. Marcus was at the station when the alert came through. He and Sarah crowded around a monitor along with 3 other detectives. The video quality was flawless as always. A woman in her 30s, bound to the now familiar leather armchair, the green damask wallpaper, the bookshelf. And then, slowly, the camera panned to the left. Into the frame walked a figure. A man, dressed in dark trousers and a rumpled button-down shirt. The figure kept his back to the camera as he approached the woman, but something about the way he moved made Marcus's blood run cold. "Pause it," he said. Sarah froze the frame. The figure was partially visible now, turned at an angle. Marcus could see the shape of his jaw, the slope of his shoulders. "Go back," Marcus whispered. "Go back to the beginning of the stream." Sarah complied. They watched again as the feed started, as the woman struggled against her bindings. And then, as the figure entered the frame, Marcus saw it. The shirt the man was wearing had a coffee stain on the sleeve, a small brown oval near the cuff. Marcus looked down at his own sleeve. The same stain, from that morning when he'd knocked over his cup reaching for a file. "That's me," he said. The words felt foreign in his mouth. "That's me in the video." The room went silent. Sarah stared at him, then at the screen. "Marcus, you've been here all day. You were in the briefing at 6. This stream went live at 6:15. "I know," Marcus said. "But that's my shirt, that's my walk, that's—" The figure on screen turned toward the camera, and Marcus felt his reality fracture. The face staring back at him from the monitor was his own. Same dark eyes. Same scar above the left eyebrow from a suspect's elbow 5 years ago. Same tired lines around the mouth. It was him, but it wasn't him. The movements were too smooth, too perfect, like watching himself in a mirror that showed a reflection a half a second delayed. "Deepfake," one of the tech specialists said. "It has to be AI-generated. Someone's mapped your face and mannerisms onto a model." But that didn't explain the apartment. It didn't explain how they'd replicated every detail down to the crack in the plaster, and the coffee stain on his shirt. Marcus watched his digital twin on the screen move toward the woman. He watched himself pull on gloves. He watched himself wrap hands that looked exactly like his own around her throat. And he watched the life leave her eyes while an audience of strangers cheered in a chat window he couldn't close. The stream ended. Marcus stood in the darkened office, surrounded by colleagues who were now looking at him with something that might have been suspicion or might have been pity. Sarah's hand was on his shoulder, but he barely felt it. "We'll figure this out," she was saying. "This is someone who knows you, Marcus. Someone with access to your space, your life. We'll find them." But Marcus wasn't listening. He was thinking about the streams, about the victims, about how each one had occurred when he had an alibi, when he was surrounded by people who could confirm he was nowhere near the crime, about how carefully orchestrated it all was, about how someone had turned him into a ghost, a digital puppet that murdered while he slept, while he worked, while he went about his life believing he was in control of his own existence. The fifth victim's body was found on Sunday. Same cause of death, same pattern. But this time, when they processed the scene, they found something new. A small camera, no bigger than a button, hidden in the ceiling of Marcus's apartment. It had been there for months, the tech team determined. Watching, recording, learning. Feed in an algorithm thousands of hours of footage until it could recreate not just Marcus's face, but his mannerisms, his movements, the exact way he held his shoulders when he was tired. They swept the entire flat and found 6 more cameras. In the bedroom, in the bathroom, in the kitchen, watching his every move. Whoever had placed them had gained access months ago, probably during one of the rare times Marcus traveled for work. They'd installed the cameras, left no trace, and disappeared. The realization was crushing. He'd been violated in a way that made his skin crawl. Every private moment, every vulnerable instant had been captured and used to build a version of himself that existed only to kill. Sarah led the investigation into Marcus's recent past, looking for anyone who'd had opportunity and technical skill. They found nothing. No forced entry on the dates they'd narrowed down. No suspicious activity on his building's limited security footage. Whoever did this was a professional, someone who understood digital surveillance and physical security in equal measure. The 6th stream never came. After the cameras were discovered, the killer went dark. The forums buzzed with theories. Some users claimed the whole thing had been an elaborate hoax. Others believed the detective had finally caught up with the killer. But Marcus knew better. The silence was tactical. The killer was adapting, finding a new method, a new victim. Or perhaps just waiting for the perfect moment to reveal that all of this, every stream, every murder, had been building towards something larger. Marcus moved out of his flat the next day. He couldn't stay there, couldn't sleep in a space that had been turned into a theater for death. He took a room in a bland chain hotel near the station, the kind of place with beige walls and art that meant nothing. He lay awake at night, staring at the ceiling, wondering if there were cameras here too, wondering if somewhere, someone was watching, building another version of him, perfecting the code. The deepfake had been so accurate that even he'd had moments of doubt, fleeting seconds where he'd wondered if maybe he was capable of things he couldn't remember. The rational part of his mind knew it was impossible. He had alibis, witnesses, proof. But the irrational part, the part that lived in the space between sleeping and waking, whispered that maybe the boundaries between his digital twin and himself weren't as solid as he wanted to believe. Sarah visited him in the hotel on a Tuesday evening, bringing files from the case. They spread them across the small desk, looking for patterns they'd missed. "The tech team thinks they can trace the algorithm's origin," she said. "The style of the deepfake suggests custom software, not something off the shelf. If we can find who wrote it, we find the killer," Marcus finished. But he didn't feel the rush of hope he should have felt. Instead, there was only exhaustion, the kind that settled into bones and made everything feel heavy. "You should take some time," Sarah said. "Leave the city. This case, it's too close." Marcus shook his head. "He used my face to kill people. I'm not walking away from that." But as the days stretched into weeks with no new leads, no new streams, Marcus began to wonder if walking away was exactly what he should do. The victims' families had been notified. The investigation was ongoing, and somewhere in the sprawling digital wilderness of the dark web, a killer was waiting. Maybe for Marcus to drop his guard, maybe for the world to forget, or maybe for nothing at all, content in the knowledge that he'd created something that would outlive him, a ghost in the machine, a perfect copy of a man who'd spent his life chasing shadows, now condemned to be one himself. The case file remained open, labeled Case Number 404. The glitch, the media had started calling it, a detective hunting a version of himself, a killer who existed everywhere and nowhere. And in the quiet moments when Marcus caught his own reflection in a window or a screen, he had to look twice to make sure it was really him looking back.
The scripted casebook remains open. Subscribe to the archive. Share the evidence. Leave your verdict below. Some secrets are better shared.